Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, January 7th, 2021. Welcome to the new year, guys, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it very much. All right, guys. Well, I thought I might do a very special video for the very first video I'm doing this year. And of course, it's going to be about my favorite subject, the giants, the quote unquote giants, or large hominids, as I like to call them. And it's a bit positive because, I'm often wondering to myself that, you know, how. How we're going to break this skepticism by people, whether it be, these mainstream people or even these alternative people, about what the Giants were really all about. But there's hints of it with other people's research, and I think there are a lot of rational researchers out there, and I would definitely consider Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer, who wrote this book, Asia of the Giants, A Cultural History of the Tall Ones in Prehistoric America, which I've covered on my channel before. Articles that they've done for Ancient Origins. It's really excerpts from this book. So they seem to be there's no really any talk about Nephilim or Anunnaki, or, they do talk about the myths, the native people's myths about the cannibalistic giants, etc., but cannibalism was a popular topic among Native American peoples, even amongst themselves, and rumors about other tribes that weren't giant. So it's just a pejorative way of demonizing the enemy that is commonly used by native tribes all over the Americas. Okay, guys, that's the bottom line with that stuff. So, but in any case, Jason Jarrell here and Sarah Farmer, definitely rational researchers on the topic of the Giants, and of course, people like Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman were co-authors on this book, Giants on Record, which I have a link to lectures on this book in a playlist in my playlist there, where you can see a lecture given by Hugh and Jim, I believe, both on this book. So, here's some rational people not talking about. I mean, will occasionally mention the Anunnaki or Nephilim, but their main concentration is like more or less what the facts are, what the accounts are, what we know, what we can know, what the history and legends and myths say, etc., etc. They cover all bases about that, and Hugh Newman's another one. And also Freddie Silva. I don't know if you ever heard of Freddie Silva, but he's written this book, Giants, Men of Renown. And what has your old friend Budcat been saying? I don't know if Freddie covers this at all, but somebody like the great Peacemaker from the Iroquois legend or the Haudenosaunee legends, seems to be one of these men of renown. And then you hear about it on the Stonewall Research channel. You don't hear it anywhere else. And what the relationship of the giants to the stone walls and other mound constructions throughout the Americas. And we talk about all sorts of things and how they're not cannibals, judging by their dentistry that's going on with the skulls, ancient skulls that are found. Don't seem to have any evidence of that. So there's a lot of things that you'll hear on my channel you won't hear by any of these researchers, but these people seem to be more or less in line with my type of thinking about these things. Just be open-minded about almost everything, okay? But again, on my channel, seem to dispel some of these other ideas that these people will entertain, and including with the UFOs involved and everything else. But I thought you might be interested in hearing this article from GAIA. This is, the TV shows that they produce, and also this article from the online magazine here, which is from 2019. So it's fairly recent here. So I'd like to read this to you, and then there's a film at the end of this provided by a guy over here that you might be interested in watching. We'll take a little excerpt of that and just think about it. But let's see about this article here, Proof of Giants on Earth from 2019. Were there giants on Earth? Humans have long expressed a mixture of fascination and fear around the question, were there giants on Earth? Whether in legends or life, giants have been worshipped, reviled, ostracized, and celebrated, while the existence of dinosaurs is largely accepted, and millions of people travel across continents to marvel at majestic, larger-than-life monuments. The facts about human giants or giant races are much debated. Regardless of whether they are dismissed as myth or accepted as fact, giants represent important aspects of our individual and collective psyche. They capture our imagination, appear in religious texts, and drive scientific endeavor. But the question still remains, did giants once roam the earth? What are giants? A brief look at gigantism. Merriam-Webster defines a giant as being a, quote, legendary human-like being of great stature and strength, unquote, as well as, quote, a living being of great size, unquote. In physical terms, a giant is a person over 7 feet tall with a condition known as, quote unquote, gigantism. The tallest person documented in modern history was Robert Wadlow, 1918 and 1940, known as the Alton Giant or the Giant of Illinois, who stood 8 feet 11 inches tall. There's a picture of him when he was a kid. And he sees other normal family members. This obviously isn't, DNA thing, although we don't rule out that the remnants of giant DNA in people who suffer from gigantism or pituitary problems or whatever somehow combine to make things happen. Okay, there's DNA in all of us that they don't know what it is and they don't know where it comes from. Mystery DNA. They imagine it comes from somebody. That's why they don't say it's really a mystery. Obviously, it comes from somebody. Okay, but who is it? And are they prepared to admit what it might be? Though they may not be because they have to follow the narrative given by mainstream academia. Wallow intended to study law, but lived as a celebrity after traveling with the Ringling Brothers Circus as a spokesman for giant-sized shoes. He died at a young age, an all too common end for those with gigantism. Their weight and size puts constant strain on the heart and skeletal system. Today, genetic giants are gaining acceptance because overall, humans have evolved into a taller species. According to Max Roser, an economist studying global standards of living conditions between 1810 and 1980, European male height grew from an average of 160 centimeters to 185 centimeters. But despite this acceptance, giants can still find life in a normal sized world stressful and lonely, and like Wadlow, are treated as an oddity. This contradiction mirrors the way in which giant races have been regarded throughout history. Hmm, interesting that they say that. Evidence of giants discovered, disregarded, and discarded. In the mid 1800s, a flurry of activity emerged across North America in the fields of archaeology and anthropology. This triggered in part by the discovery of the Chickasaw tribal burial mounds of Oklahoma, in which were found human bones 7 feet and longer in length. In fact, during the years ranging from late 1800s all the way to the 1990s, over 1,000 reports of giant-sized human skeleton remains were found across North America. These stories were met by the general public with curiosity and an increased appetite for the possibility that giants once roamed the country. In the United States, this period of archaeological discovery took place during the Manifest Destiny period, which began in 1845 and was highlighted by rapid and aggressive territorial growth. A Puritan led religious fervor fueled expansion across the West. Native Americans were looked upon as heathens to be converted, civilized, or eliminated. Discoveries of ancient pre New World giant races directly contradicted the manifest destinies ideals of white racial, religious, and ethnic superiority. It was common for giant skeletal remains to be confiscated and destroyed. According to Richard Dewhurst, author of The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, the Smithsonian Institute, then in its early stages of establishment, administered the Manifest Destiny philosophy throughout the Powell Doctrine, named after John Wesley Powell, the first bureau head of the Smithsonian Department of Ethnology. The doctrine reflected the isolationist mindset of the times and mandated that no archaeological or anthropological research would include mention of ancient tribal cultures. Despite the documented existence of ethnology reports stating that the Smithsonian was in possession of giant human remains, none can be found today. But what else might have contributed to these attitudes and actions surrounding proof of giants on Earth? Was it megalophobia, the psychological fear of large objects or people, or something deeper that has been present since the time of ancient cultures? Legend of giants around the world. Ancient traditions overflow with legends of giants: St. Christopher, Goliath, the Nephilim, Gilgamesh, Viracocha, Sasquatch, and more across the continents, languages, and landscapes. Old Testament accounts of the Nephilim, a biblical race of giants and demigods, stated that they were so large that they made the Israels feel like, quote, grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them, unquote. The Paiute myth of the Siddhika is a tale of a giant tribe of cannibals who were eventually destroyed by their maker. This is similar to the myth of the first people created by Viracocha, the ancient Inca god, who he destroyed because of their uncontrollable and unruly behavior. Carol Rose, the author of Giants, Monsters, and Dragons and an encyclopedia of folklore, legend, and myth, writes that giants, quote, exist beyond the realm of human order and had to be controlled, banished, or defeated, unquote, and were considered, quote unquote, destructive entities. Natural disasters were associated with mythical giants who were also thought of terrifying hybrids and mutations representing the darker side of our psyche. Elusive proof of giants remains a compelling narrative, fueling controversy and connecting us to aspects of Earth's past. As more is discovered through scientific advancements with DNA and forensics, we can anticipate these conversations continuing now and into the future. So this was this article by this woman, I guess, who writes for Gaia here, this Lisa Trank, began writing after many years as a performing artist, an actress, and singer, and is happy to bring those years of crafting characters and storytelling into her writing life. In addition to Gaia, work has been published in the Saturday Evening Post, University of Denver Journal, Salon, Tablet, Queller, Mind, Body, Green, and a number of anthologies. So she's written for all these mainstream kind of things and whatnot. And even this thing by Gaia, even though it's tackling this topic, and we're talking to this Freddie Silver person here, but they go with that. I suggest you watch it because it's very, very interesting what they say in there. Okay, but of course, you have to take it with grains of salt and apply it to things that are mentioned about, whatever it's Nephilim or Anunnaki or UFOs or whatever kind of rabbit holes they're bringing you into in this thing. Okay, you got to be wary of that. All right, because what I challenge all of those things on my channel. So, it's the thing is with even the alternative researchers, whoever they may be, and whatever subject they may be, they still adhere to some of the old ideas somewhat. They will take some of mainstream, and I do too. I certainly use I'm always using their evidence, to stick their own foot in their mouth. Okay. But, obviously there were some researchers out there who did find work, but their work was suppressed. And I go over many of those on my channel through C.W. Saran's book and people like Charles C. Mann. So, if you haven't read those books are very important books that, you might want to take a look at. But let's just take an excerpt of this. I'm going to, suggest this. I'll put a link to it in the description and um, at the end of this video here, if they have it on YouTube, I guess, or we'll see. But in any case, at least I'll give you the link to this so you can watch this. And as I say, it's very good. I enjoy it very much. But again, you have to be wary of what's being said by other people and whatnot. You know exactly, if you're a follower of my channel, you know exactly what those things are. But and I mean, it's because when things are not known, when they remain unknown, there's no direct evidence for many things. Okay, except for stories and hearsay and second and third party tales, whatever it might be. Okay, speculation runs rampant about in all places. I'm speculating many times too, and I don't mind speculating. It's just my own idea based on what I've read and studied, etc. And I don't mind saying that it is my own speculation, saying using the common words that you understand when you read these things, even among themselves, they know what they mean. When they say probably, it may be, and could be, and this is all the language that's used in the hypothetical situations that they apply based on their own knowledge. Okay, well, we can do the very same thing. Just because you went to school for it and they, are trained to look at that specifically or whatever it is, doesn't mean that anybody else can't master, their studying skills the same exact way, regardless of they went to college or not. There's many people who are autodidacts out there, like myself, and many people I'm sure subscribe to this channel, who are very autodidactic. There's a big old tomcat here now, black and white one. I haven't seen him before. I got a lot of cats come here to visit this place because I put food out. There's animals all the time. The possum comes around. Boy, you know what? You think they're ugly, but this guy looks pretty good. He's kind of cute. Maybe he's because he eats a lot of this food, on his garbage food, but if you're hungry, cheeseburger bites and hot dogs and stuff like that. But I'm giving them hot food, man. I don't want it to go to waste in the garbage. It's like a sin. I give it to the birds, all the bread and everything too. We throw out a lot of food here. It's absolutely disgusting, and we can't give it to anybody by rules of the health department rules for this county. Just in the state, you can't give it to anybody. It's terrible. I could take it for myself, but that's different. I do a little bit. All right, guys. So anyway, just take a listen to a little clip with Freddie Silver talking here, and it seems to be saying along the same sorts of things, lines that I mentioned on my channel. But to think and hear about, we can sort of have a little gratitude here that maybe some of these old 20th century ideas and 19th century ideas about the giants are being gradually eroded away and dispelled by people like this Freddie Silva guy, and people like Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman and myself and other people who are doing research into the giants of the past and these other civilizations that could have existed during the past and speculate about them. But let's hear what Freddie. So just a clip of this, and then of course you go and watch it yourself.
Why did you write Missing Lands? We're going to tie that story in because it lays a really nice backdrop for what we're going to see when we go out in the field with these incredible ancient sites. What were you trying to bring to the world in Missing Lands?
The humanity of it, which we hear so much about Plato, we hear so much about things which are done on a very scholarly level, but there's a humanity missing. And for me, it was about the people. Who were these people that we keep talking about? These missing civilizations that we hear about, the Anu and the Anunnaki, and they begin a very bad sort of time. PR, in terms of PR, they're always seen in a very negative light. That wasn't my intention at all, and it wasn't certainly my impression. And I wanted to sort of bring that out in a positive way, in the way that it was written a long, long time ago, and connect all those dots and figure out why were these people here? Where did they live? What was their purpose, and why did they live separately from the rest of the human race all the time. They seem to be in islands all the time. They seem to keep away from humanity, but they were very much focused on the development of humanity. They were very concerned about where we were going from hunter-gatherers into another level of education. So that's what fascinated me about the whole thing. I had never had any idea where I'm going with these projects.
All right, so it's a little bit from Freddie Silver, he's talking about this book, Missing Lands. Okay, he's talking about ancient civilization, and then he wrote this book in 2020, Giants, Men of Renown, which, I've been saying all along on my channel, of course, of covering those men of renown on my channel that here in the Americas, and many ideas. This article is a pretty good one. I mean, I think it represents the sort of erosion of this skepticism of what actually was going on, possibly in the past. He mentions Atlantis there, but as C.W. Schramm said in his book, The First American, that even if we found Atlantis, we probably wouldn't recognize it. And the reason why is probably because we're more likely talking about a worldwide civilization, or a period of time where there was a worldwide civilization. Of course, the way the Earth has been sort of, you know, um, destroyed and through cataclysms or whatever Belikovsky talked about, other things, whatever it may be, often in the past, okay, civilization could have reached its apex, like Randall Carlson sort of suggests that, so many times in the past, civilization reached a certain level and then it was completely destroyed by some catastrophic event that came from wherever, perhaps space, because, we're not controlling that, folks. I mean, we're just a ball going supposedly through space or whatever it is that we're going through space. And, nobody's driving, it's just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But it seems to be that the Earth has survived many of these things, and these races of people survived into up to times. But as like I believe in expanding Earth, I've heard a lot of arguments about it, whether it be Neil Adams or people, that I've shown on my channel. Okay, and the difference in gravity is what made the difference. Is that in a different gravity, creatures of different varieties could arise from other life forms because their cells could grow much bigger. But when this gravity was made more intense, like it is now, they were unable to survive, or able to make a transition gradually. But apparently, one thing that all these people don't seem to talk about on their channels is their books and research is this giant genocide that I talk about on my channel. And this whole thing with the giants being cannibals, simply this uh, demonization of the enemy, which we've done so many times in our own history against our own enemies, whoever they may have been, the West against, whomever. It's not a hard thing to believe. It's human nature to create these myths about your enemies. It's a whole part of sociology that you would have to go into understand. But this, put it this way, whether this article demonstrates it. And by the way, I did a video on my channel about this article that was in the Knox Pages, which is an online sort of news magazine here from Ohio. And this Ohio journalist that wrote this article about the possibility of being giants in these mounds found in Ohio, etc. And this is, sort of mainstream news publication for the area over there in Ohio. And it seems that, many people are open to these ideas. There's no mention of Anunnaki or Nephilim. It's strictly speaking about these giants that were found buried in the mounds there in Ohio, and a possibility of there actually being there. Okay, see, the issue becomes is the denials of the Smithsonian for so many years, and the denials by mainstream academia, and but yet this critical research that goes on where they find these large skeletal remains of all different kinds of configurations, et cetera. But there seems to be a disconnect there, and a disconnect in the time period between the ending of these cultures, wherever they may be, whether it be the Adena and Hopewell here or the Bell Beaker people in Europe, and what that actually was, and what epic of the giants that was, and how many previous epics were. Like they're talking about, Freddie Silver's talking about in Sardinia there, and could have the giants that were in Sardinia at that time could have represent a separate epic of the giants. We don't know because we don't know the true historical timeline. It's all been either altered, erased, omitted, covered up, suppressed, whatever it is. So, and this is what we're trying to discuss here, especially on my channel, and other possibilities that might exist. Okay, the fact that for me, he was talking about Atlantis, Freddie Silver was talking about Atlantis, but Atlantis was probably not what we think it was. It's just part of this worldwide culture that existed in the ancient past, the far ancient past, and goes back even hundreds of thousands of years. Like Randall Carson says, these civilizations built up to a certain extent, even included technologies. And when we think of these things, this is why the cargo cult, the UFO people often use the cargo cult. See, this is what, where all these depictions of UFOs in the past and all this ancient artwork and everything is because of the cargo cult. This is, but they're taking such logical leaps. This is not how logic works, folks. You can't make these assumptions from one place to the other. There's a lot of in between. So all that cargo cult really proves is that at some many times in the Earth's past, there could have been very, very primitive civilizations existing simultaneously with ultra advanced civilizations. And that any sort of histories repeated or whatever it is could reflect all these things. But these things don't represent, UFOs or aliens or Nephilim, just a more advanced civilization somewhere on this planet, while other just extremely primitive civilizations or slightly more advanced civilizations were on the planet at the same time. Okay, that's all that means. Okay, that's what the cargo cult represents. You don't go, that's as far as we can go with it. It's just you can't take it to the next step. You can, but it's extreme speculation, which is fine. That's it's fun to do all that kind of stuff, but it really has no bearing on any of the evidence that people try to bring about with the accounts of the giants, whether it be, people like Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer, or Jim Vieira, Hugh Newman, or even Freddie Silver, just taking a rational look at what the real evidence seems to represent and what we can actually speculate about. Okay, it's like my own opinion when I speculate about it that the giants that ended up in the Americas is probably part of this worldwide civilization that we think is Atlantis or whatever it is, which may have possibly existed in you. It makes a lot of sense if you're an island nation, any island nation like Great Britain or Japan or anything that's not a continent like Australia or whatever. The problem is of civilization advance, the lack of resources on an island civilization and the expansion of the population, et cetera, generally requires island nations to have to exploit resources from other places, okay, that are outside of their scope of influence generally. Okay, so if let's say Atlantis is represented by some island in the middle of the Atlantic before the Earth expanded and it disappeared and shrunk down into the ocean there, which seems to be the seam of mountaintops there, and all the core evidence only represents like 170 million years. That's all they can go back with the core samples from all the oceans around the world for some strange reason, and not 4 billion years. But this, it only represents, and look, island nations need resources, and they certainly could have done, as what I've mentioned so many times on my channel, the what we call the Atlanteans, is established and garrison these areas all over the planet, either guarantee security for these people in the way of peace treaties, etc. This is all just historical knowledge. You don't have to get too new agey or UFO-ish or whatever about it, or completely skeptical about it or anything like that. Just focus on what we could know. And my channel focuses on that, guys. So, anyway, I just thought I'd read this article to you. Sort of gives us hope that, some of the ceiling is cracking there with the sort of skepticism of this races of humanoids living in the past, whether they be giants or little people. They don't mention any little people in this article either, but I think those things should be mentioned when you talk about a past, whether it be Atlantis, Lemuria, Hyperborea, or whoever it is, or whatever, Tartaria, of races of different kinds of humans and humanoids living together in an ancient past that resembles more like something from J.R.R. Tolkien's mind. Okay, he took his how he designed the characters in his novels and everything, all taken from mythologies of the past. Okay, which may not be myths anymore, and so many of the new anthropologists and archaeologists are coming about and may be starting to look at the myths of ancient peoples in much different ways. So, anyway, guys, I thought I'd bring this interesting article to you and bring this sort of hope to anybody who's sort of in this line of thinking, as I am, as some of these people are. And, just very positive thing and a way forward in understanding the past. It seems to me that you can't move into the future without understanding what your past was all about. You can't, you know, you can't understand what your location in time and space is without knowing your past and knowing, locating where you are now, and where you could potentially go into the future. So this is very important to us as a race, and certainly we should get to the bottom of it, right? So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Please hit the like button if you like the video, and if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe, because my channel covers many things that many of these researchers don't even talk about. So please do subscribe, and you will hear some amazing things that make a lot of sense. So, and using mainstream often as a backdrop to what is being put forth. So, anyway, guys, Bugcat7 signing out. Happy New Year. Peace.